It's Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. in Central Europe. It's Space Café Austria time. Our Space Café Austria by Sabine Pongruber with her guest Christoph Aubrecht will begin very soon. As always, we really appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback, and we learn and improve based on your feedback. I am Elena Vocale, the event coordinator at SpaceWatch.Global. SpaceWatch.Global is a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. First, I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters who are committed to keep our independent journalism alive. Thank you, we really appreciate that. In case you want to join the supporter team, be aware that it is just a click away from you on our website. I know many of you are familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. And don't miss the latest one, which features Matt Russo, astrophysicist and sound wizard, a musician, an episode for a very fascinating episode on the surprising appeal of sounds from space, exploring the role of music in understanding the universe. We also have very exciting episodes of Space Café Radio. The last episodes with Andreas Lindenthal about the Munich Security Conference and Victor Danchet of Endurosat, among other things. Torsten and Victor talked about the Tolliman mission that wants to answer to the question, could life survive around the nearest stars? If you haven't done so yet, please check out our fresh new podcast series, The Space Economy Insights by Kevin O'Connell and Dr. Emma Gatti. You find all these and all of our audio series wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to become a space watcher and let the world know about it with your cool t-shirt or mug, visit our fan shop. It is open for you on our website. If you've missed any of our previous web talks, we have an entire archive on our webpage in the event section. And of course, you can find us on YouTube. Please note that we will host Space Café Austria live regularly. My job is almost done with this for today, and I would like to hand over to your host today. But first, Judith, over to you.
Thank you, Elena. Hi, everybody. I'm Judith Delaney, CEO of Perihelion, the creative agency for the space sector, and your former host of Space Café Austria. I am so happy to introduce your new host today, as it couldn't be a better person who's taken over from me for Space Café Austria as I'm heading into maternity leave. Sabine, thank you so much for being the new host, for preparing this. Honestly, it couldn't be anyone better. Sabine is an energy industry and manufacturing veteran, and she has worked 16 years in global leadership roles like at General Electric. She's also the CEO and founder of WimmerGlobal, which is a consulting company where she and her team are building bridges between energy industries and new space and space industries. Sabine is an economist by education and is based in Salzburg. And as you can see, perfect for this role. I'm handing over. I'm just saying thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you to everyone here for letting me be your host for the past year. I'm looking forward to working with you, Torsten, as well, and Elena in the future. And I wish you all a fantastic Space Café.
Best of luck, Judith, for your big adventure with your baby boy. Well, thank you. I will kick us off by introducing our precious guest, Christoph, by giving you a rundown on his CV. You might as well take some notes because it's a seriously impressive CV. I know Christoph is probably going to blush right now. And then right next, after, we'll jump into a conversation by me asking a surprising question, which Christoph has no idea what's coming up. So here we go. Christoph Aubrecht is currently based in Frascati, Italy, managing the Global Development Assistance, in short GDA, at European Space Agency. GDA is informed by and in turn powering a broader strategic framework with World Bank and Asia Development Bank. Prior to ESA, Christoph led the spatial analytics efforts under the World Bank's Disaster Resilience Initiative. He has gained cross-disciplinary experience through positions across academia, public, private, and intergovernmental institutions like the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Astrium, Columbia, and AIT. But that's not all. Christoph holds a master and PhD degree in Geo Information Service and Remote Sensing from University of Vienna, and attended executive management and impact communication trainings at Harvard and Cambridge. It's a pleasure to have you on board today, Christoph. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, pleasure is on my side.
You've been very busy with the GDA in the last years, and there have been many events in the previous weeks. But before these events, you went on vacation. You have a very cosmopolitan lifestyle. So where does a cosmopolitan like you go on vacation?
That's a good question, actually. If you don't mind, before I answer that surprise question, I have two things to say and admit. So the first thing is I wanted to really also say all the best to Judith for her new adventure. It's the most important thing in life, I would consider, from my own experience. So all the best for that. And thanks for setting it up initially. The second point is, getting back to the intro of Elena, I certainly want one of these cool T-shirts and mugs to be a real Space Café insider. So that's I put in my order here right now.
Consider it done.
Okay. So back to your question. Indeed, yeah, my setup is not so straightforward. So I am Austrian, so that's why I think the fit for a Space Café Austria is quite good. But I haven't lived in Austria for a while, and indeed, vacation often takes me back to Austria, so that's not so exciting now for this audience. But the other side of the family takes me to Turkey. So partly vacation is in Austria, partly vacation is in Turkey. Or, you know, the aim would be identifying and visiting, exploring a new country every year. That's been a bit more difficult since COVID, but okay, still trying to do that. And the last one on the list wasn't a new country, but a new island, which was Madeira in the Atlantic
Ocean, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. I've never been, but I heard good news, good things
nice.
About it. Well, unfortunately, we gotta focus on the topic and not on the vacation mood stuff. So
Exactly.
can you help us understand what the Global Development Assistance, short GDA program, does within ESA?
Absolutely. This probably can fill the remaining 45 minutes we have, but I try to put it in a nutshell. So the GDA program is not one of the usual ESA programs, I would say. It's something that only works in partnership with our cooperators. You mentioned the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, but there are other international financial institutions that we work with very closely. And this program is really set up to kind of stimulate uptake in those institutions and their respective clients. So we don't do this for the sake of creating, some new nice analytics or so, but we do it with the purpose of addressing requirements, concrete requirements that these institutions have, and help them actually absorb it, right? So in that sense, we would stimulate the initial phase up to a pre-operational level across any thematic domain, and we can get back to that. And then basically the idea and expectation would be that these institutions take it forward and operationalize it. And with that, obviously, we tick a lot of boxes on ESA's mandates in a sense, one of which being to also position the Earth observation service industry, obviously, favorably to take advantage of this, in a sense, still underexploited market, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So the ESA, I think the European Space Agency is no stranger to our audience, but maybe the World Bank, as very few of us rule a country or have invested in multi-billion infrastructure projects. Can you tell us briefly what the World Bank or the Asia Development Bank do?
Yes. So indeed, this is again not an easy question, but I would say to try to simplify it, the main goal of these banks, as the name already says, they are banks, right? Mm-hmm. They are not, in a sense, operating in the same way like the UN, for example, in the general sustainable development sphere, but they are explicitly banks. So they handle a lot of money. That said, the money isn't necessarily only the bank's money, but it's often actually the country's money that is kind of amplified through engaging with the banks. How is that done? Obviously, banks give loans and credits, right? So in a sense, they provide much needed capital to developing country stakeholders at a better rate than they would get at in the free financial markets, right? So that's the bottom line. But then it's not just about the financing, it's also about accompanying this financing with technical assistance and policy advice to kind of guide developing countries on their path to get out of poverty and to foster shared prosperity. So in that sense, for example, the World Bank operates across all regions. They address, a whole range of topics, obviously from, reconstruction and development, as actually the World Bank has in its name, because the World Bank in itself consists of two institutions. One is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the other one is the International Development Association. So you have actually two entities that together form the World Bank. So, reconstruction, transport, these kind of things are core things. Energy, for you, no strange topic, but obviously also things like agricultural development, water resources, urban development, increasingly the nexus of fragility and climate and security. And indeed, in the GDA program, we address all of these topics. And the goal is there really for us to use the banks as an intermediary to generate and accelerate impact in the developing countries. And that's also really the core goal of what the banks aim to achieve. Yeah. And I don't know if I really managed to now kind of clarify what the banks do, but I tried it shortly.
I understand that they're an umbrella organization where I can, if I'm a country or having a big infrastructure project or reconstruction effort in a country, I can ask for money and get it a little bit cheaper than I would on the market.
Yeah, that's a good, I would say, a good entry point. I mean, obviously, there is much more behind it, right? So for the World Bank, if we take it as an example, but the regional development banks operate in a similar fashion. It has established connections with, around 200 countries. Let's take the World Bank. For each of these countries, the primary entry point for an institution like the World Bank is the Ministry of Finance. But then they go to all the other ministries. And with every country, with every of these around 200 countries, the bank puts something together that's called a country partnership framework. And in that country partnership framework, they jointly identify where the priorities of this particular country lies, and how to best address these challenges and development priorities together. How to use financing for it to make investments in physical assets or also in policies, right? So the bank also gives loans on policy development. It's called policy development loans. So in that sense, they stimulate the government to change laws or to change political frameworks, and in turn, support and boost their financial system. So there is a lot of soft power involved, not just the actual financing, but on how Earth observation plays a role in there is really more. We try to help the banks make better use of satellite information, right? So that's the core idea here. And I mean, there are classical applications of satellite Earth observation specifically, let's say agriculture, crop productivity or forest management also, which the Earth observation community has been working on for a long time. But then there are other application domains where one would think, okay, what does Earth observation actually contribute there? But you can still find, bits and pieces where actually satellite information proves to be very, very powerful. Usually it's not a standalone application, it's integrated in a broader framework with other tools, other data, other services. But it has really increased drastically, I would say, the uptake of Earth observation, especially over the last, let's say, 10 years, which also coincides strongly with the emergence of Copernicus and the whole influx or avalanche of free and open, pretty high resolution data, satellite imagery, because that, of course, for development counterparts who are often working on restricted budgets, despite the billions of financing that the banks handle, these open and free data policies made a big difference in how developing countries can actually work with satellite information.
Understood, but to me it seems just overwhelming how many topics there are. You had to decide which core topics you're gonna address, and if I remember correctly, it's 11 that you're pursuing. Can you share, for example, on one of the 11 and a real life insight in a project that is close to be in pre-operational level?
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, I mean, first on how we decide on the topics, it's really not us as us being ESA who decide on the topics. So we try to sit down with the bank counterparts or the IFI, International Financial Institution counterparts, to decide on where are their priority interests, which topics, right? So in a sense, these 11 thematic domains we address in GDA, they reflect pretty much the administrative structure of the World Bank, in fact. So the World Bank is classified in so-called global practices. Mm-hmm. And, for example, there is a practice group called Sustainable Development, and this practice group includes a number of global practices. And, one is the agriculture global practice. So, okay, we reflect that in having a dedicated action on agriculture in GDA. Another one is the water global practice. Again, we have a water activity in GDA. So these topics try to really match the way the banks operate so that we can engage with a dedicated community and basically help them operationalize it in their day-to-day working practices. So that's on the selection of topics. But if I dive down in one example, let's take a tangible one, right? Like the disaster resilience activity, right? Which is obviously something where Earth observation is very useful. We've been working with the Asian Development Bank on the post disaster analytics for the Pakistan flooding, for mm-hmm. example. And this has proven to be highly effective, and in a sense, demonstration products on flooded area, on potential exposure, like both building stock but also population, was then it was demonstrated in the GDA activity and then taken forward by ADB, and ADB actually then also procured additional services using their own financing to basically, in a sense, operationalize what has been demonstrated in GDA. So this would be one example, but there are many others depending on the topic you'd like to highlight. I mean, others is, for example, urban mobility is a big one. Mm-hmm. And we actually just published a feature story on that on the GDA website, how we actually deal with urban mobility in Bangladesh. And in that sense, that comes out of the urban sustainability activity in GDA, where we also have an Austrian partner. Just thinking about it, my own background, the AIT, Austrian Institute of Technology, is actually partnering in that particular consortium.
Excellent. Well, just out of curiosity and being, adding something from my own experience. I was talking to WAPCO, that's the Pakistan energy providers, on the market development, and they heard of you. So that is good.
There you go. Yeah, I guess that's a
good thing, right? One, yeah. Yeah. By the way, a note to the audience, I know from what I saw, what activities GDA is doing, they have tons of material available for you to dig deeper into the topic. And congratulations, Christoph. Yesterday you published the first, I think, status report on your activities, right?
That's true. Yes, actually, this is something I'm quite proud of. Also, the way we have structured the program is again is not a usual way. And if you look at generally at programs in the space sector, I would say not just within ESA, but we took a lot of elements from how the banks operate, right? Which is kind of drawing from my own experience, but generally the environment we work in. So we have in GDA not just these 11 thematic domains that we are addressing, but we have a number of cross-cutting support activities. And one of these is a monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment activity. And actually that activity has produced this first annual status review. And it allows us to, continuously assess what we are doing well and what isn't going so well. It allows us to be flexible in adjusting, where we are going. We have a clearly identified impact pathway. We have a theory of change. So all these kind of things that bring together the individual projects or program components really under one consistent and coherent umbrella. And in addition to this M&E monitoring and evaluation activity, we also have something that, again, is rather unusual for a space program, I would say. We are about to launch a dedicated impact communications activity, which is probably of interest also to the audience, given the Space Café and the SpaceWatch.Global and the whole Space Communications Alliance. I think there's a lot that we can look forward to over the next 3 years. So this is something I'm personally happy about and looking forward to also.
I just think you're the cool guys within ESA, showing the way, being very open, very proactive, working agile. I found a couple of times in your communication, tangible measurements.
Thanks for that. I'd hope to think so, but obviously, ESA is doing a lot of cool things outside of GDA. It's more like we are adjusting to the specific audience we are operating with, which is quite distinct and quite different to the usual kind of suspects that other ESA programs work with. ESA in itself is inherently still an R&D agency, right? So we are not here to kind of replicate or substitute operational procurements from any sector. We are there to stimulate, to create, and to foster uptake, right? So this is also something very clearly specified in the ESA Agenda 25, so that we really are not just getting locked in the space budget that for the regular citizen looks big, but is not big enough to really address the challenges of our time. So we should use what we have at our fingertips to infuse into other domains and also leverage external financing to be able to achieve things together. And I think for that, really, GDA is a good example, because this partnership approach we implement with the IFIs is quite unique, and it has grown over the years. We've been doing this now for about 15 years. So GDA is really an evolution. Okay, GDA as a program only exists since end of 2019, but we've had a lot of precursor initiatives that led to the setup of GDA. So it's big progress over these years.
I like the way you phrased it by saying, well, ESA's main task is R&D, research and development. And you earlier said your approach is need-based development. Is this also something that you could give as a good advice to Earth observation companies coming into being new in the market?
Yeah, again, there's a subtle distinction here, because I would say the R&D activities we implement in ESA are also needs-based, right? So all that goes down to the Copernicus missions and everything, right? Essentially, whatever we do is needs-based. I mean, it consults the requirements of the user community for new types of services where R&D is needed to kind of advance the state of the art. So this is something that is at the heart, I would say, of ESA. But in GDA, this needs-based work is slightly different because we don't necessarily embark on pure R&D. We are closer to the pre-operational level. So in that sense, we really listen to the end user requirements for operational needs, right? Not for R&D needs, but for operational needs. So what can we do? What can we provide as the space community? Obviously, in my context, specifically looking at Earth observation, what can we do to help those economists, those finance people, do the work they do anyway, but better, more efficiently, quicker, or help them do something they wouldn't be able to do otherwise? You know, these efficiency gains are really key in fostering operational uptake. And this is a big difference to looking for needs that feed into R&D activities. So on your question, if this is an advice to companies, I would say absolutely yes, because if you have a concrete operational uptake opportunity, right, then this is something, if you can capitalize on that, then that's the low-hanging fruit, I would say. And obviously, we are trying to position the entities in our member states, Earth observation value-adding service providers, how we call them. We try to position them favorably in this ecosystem, right? We help them navigate the world of development finance, which is not a standard world for Earth observation technical people. And in that sense, help them hopefully attract also direct procurements from the banks and feed their business models, essentially. Yeah.
I think very fascinating, opening the door into a total new world with outside the space, but connecting the real needs at the broader scale around, and connecting the world basically, which you mentioned Pakistan or Bangladesh as examples, with technology and insights from the European Space Agency member states. So that's fantastic.
It's also another, if I can quickly jump on this. So we've now been, talking a lot about, okay, the Earth observation technical community or European capabilities in that regard, as, positioning them and working together with them and international financial institutions. But another objective, I would say, that we are trying to follow through with GDA is also to help our member states internally to consolidate national strategic approaches in space and development, right? So this sounds fairly straightforward, but it really isn't. So these, the space agenda and the development agenda are in almost all our member states in different ministries. Often they don't know each other. They don't talk to each other. Often, we are the facilitator to bring those entities together. And this can, lead to quite surprising outcomes often, especially where the development entities are not really so familiar or aware yet of what space can offer. And then actually they realize that they have a lot of internal capacity in their own country. And this is something where, we play, I think, a very important role. There have only been a few countries who have pursued that already at a national level themselves. One of that is the UK. I think was a real a first, I would say, with their international partnership program, where actually the development side was funding a space program to work together. And unfortunately, that got discontinued, which I find a great pity, but I hope that we in GDA can take it forward. And the other country is the Netherlands, who had a dedicated program focused on water and agriculture, again, using Earth observation in those domains, and as funded by the development ministry. So this is also another great example. But again, I think that we as ESA, as a as an intergovernmental organization, and we have a lot of member states, we can take this to the next level, right? Because every country alone will have limitations, clearly, right? It's not just on the financing, it's on the internal capacity, internal knowledge, knowledge exchange. And I think there we can play a strong role to bring this to a broader audience. And obviously, even going beyond Europe, we are also trying to facilitate conversation on that in the global space community, be it through the Community of Earth Observing Satellites or the Group on Earth Observation or whatever other entities are out there, including at the UN. So I think this is a very, promising endeavor that we are trying to do here.
I don't know if it's just me or others too, but I hear an underlying moral which sounds or reflects to me as the power of teamwork. Together we are better.
Oh, very much so. Yes. No, I can definitely echo that.
Okay.
For sure.
I want to ask the audience or listeners and viewers to post their questions in the chat. We'll open up the Q&A session shortly. So use the time to ask the questions that I'm not daring asking, or that I forgot to ask, or that are just satisfies your curiosity. As you can see, Christoph is easy to approach and more than willing to answer the strangest and funniest questions.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you brought up the governmental bodies, because I think Austria is in a unique position, because in our Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure Environment, there's also the space department aligned. So I'm taking this chance to give a shout out to the Bundesministerium. We'll hunt you down. We'll try to get you on Space Café Austria podcast as well.
Actually, I'm glad you bring this up, because indeed Austria, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit personally biased there, but I'm actually very happy to about the leading role, I would say, that Austria is taking also in this domain. So Austria is one of the 14 participating states that we have in GDA. It, in fact, even increased its subscription at the recent ESA Ministerial Conference last November. So is now, in fact, in the top 5 contributors to GDA. So that's for a small country like Austria is, I think, quite something. But it does reflect also both the internal capacities that we have in the Austrian Earth Observation Service sector, who are very engaged in GDA and already were also so in the precursor initiatives, but it also reflects the political willingness to take a leading role there. And this applies very much to the ministry. The long ministry, you already mentioned it, so I'm not repeating the name. And I guess a big shout out here also to the likes of Margit Mischkulnik and her team, and obviously also Thomas Geist at FFG and the whole crowd there. But I think we can take it actually still to the next level, going back to the previous statement I made on bringing the different ministries together. So whereas we have a lot of different competencies in that particular ministry, development finance isn't in that ministry, right? Yes, it is on the environment and energy domain, but the general entry point is still the Austrian Ministry of Finance. Mm-hmm. There's also the Austrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have an entity called the Austrian Development Agency. So there are different players that actually we have brought together over the last couple of years in that broader GDA-related conversation. But we are still in a sense, convinced that the development finance side in Austria to actually align their resources also with what the Space Ministry already has done and help us, strategically amplify that narrative. And this is something we hope to address over the next couple of months also, because the World Bank actually put in place a dedicated program which complements what we do on the GDA side. And that dedicated program, it's called the Digital Earth Partnership, has as one objective to also mobilize dedicated resources. So they're setting up a trust fund to which they are trying to engage specifically European donors in order to push through on this strategic alignment of space and development finance. And I'd hope that Austria could also play their leading role as they do on the space side. And actually one step to that, sorry, I cut you off, but there was a recent event actually organized in Vienna by where all these entities came together, indeed, including the Austrian Development Agency and the Ministry of Environment, Energy, and Climate and Innovation and Transport and whatever else is there, which was called Space for Economy just very recently. And it was actually quite interesting to see the different entities that come together there. And how Austria positions itself. This goes also beyond GDA, as you may have heard. We have this new big vision of the Space for Green Transition Accelerator in ESA, and part of that vision is something they call the Green Transition Information Factories. And Austria is indeed the first demonstrator case to implement that. So this is again, it shows again. A certain commitment at both the thematic, but maybe even more so on the political level, which is very much appreciated.
Well, of course, we are biased, and I'm actually a little bit proud too. But we have a long way to go, and you mentioned 2 more questions. Because I hear it so often, the digital Earth approach. In my world, in the energy and manufacturing world, the digital twin of something is an engineering copy of a machine. But I think your digital twin of the Earth or digital Earth partnership projects look a little bit different. Would you mind explaining to a naive person like me what's the difference between my digital twin of a machine versus the Earth?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, in GDA itself, I would say we don't really do the digital twin kind of approach. So this is just upfront. And the reason for that, again, is that the digital twin, as we understand it from the space component. I mean, there's Destiny Earth, where the European Commission invests, and Digital Twin Earth, where we together work from ESA side also with the Commission. So these things are not at an operational level yet, right? So these things are to bring a huge amount of data together to, in a sense, create the digital replica of the Earth. I mean, for things like meteorology, we are quite advanced in that sense already, right? Where we have an almost near real-time kind of observation of our planet for different types of variables that are needed at different types of resolutions, obviously. And the idea is to really kind of, for other domains, do something similar, right? Make the Earth taggable, if you want, right? Or searchable, right? Like create a search engine for the world, right? Where you can, on any spot at any time, get information about any place. So this will be, for me, a simplified understanding of what a digital twin looks like. But in GDA specifically, I think that's not even absolutely necessary, because the development questions that the economists and stakeholders and counterparts in developing countries have are often very basic. They don't go to they don't care, for example, if you use AI, machine learning, or if you use a simple classification model, whatever. They just want an answer to their question. And so this is a concrete difference in how we operate in GDA, because we try to really leave the techno push aside, right? We are happy to apply AI models or whatever is needed to address the question, but we're really agnostic to that, and that's, I think, a big difference to this, because on one side we try to push the agenda on the technology and on innovation. On the other side, we're very much get back to your notion of needs driven, but on a fit for purpose level, right? So that's absolutely crucial also to the success of GDA.
I like it. But then at the same time, you mentioned the weather models you could use for urban disaster or management, right? So it's it goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. So again, I mean, I'm absolutely for innovation and for new kinds of things, and we'll use whatever is out there, right? Whatever is useful in a sense, and then we try to build on it. We use those existing things as building blocks, and we try to customize it to the needs of the development stakeholders. So I'm all for innovation, but the resources are also limited in a program like GDA. So the way we spend the money, in a sense, does not focus on blue sky R&D, in a sense.
Okay, understood. My last question before I get a question from the audience is a very complicated and very simple one at the same time. You, as a person who spent most of his career with Earth observation and looking onto the effects of climate change or environmental changes in general, is there something you could recommend or is there something you do to reduce the effects of climate change in your daily routine? Small thing, big thing, doesn't matter. Just something that we might be able to copy.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, I first answer the question, then I get back to your question. The answer, I would say, is, I mean, what I do is, yes, I don't really use the car to commute. Okay, this is a very boring answer, but okay, I use my scooter and the train, so this is useful, I think. That's an easy one. Right now, I wouldn't have a really much better question other than that we really use what we can from a professional perspective to make a big change on those topics of environment and climate. But to get back to your first statement in the question, I actually wouldn't necessarily say that I spent most of my career so far on Earth observation, which might be strange if you think that I work for ESA. But actually, I'm a very hybrid animal in that sense. I mean, I studied geography, but then I didn't do much Earth observation at the beginning. Also at AIT when I was working, and I had 10 years at AIT in total. It was primarily spatial modeling for urban settings, for disaster settings, but there wasn't too much Earth observation involved yet. This came gradually later on, and then grew. And in a sense, again, I'm working for a space agency. We obviously have a dedicated focus on satellite Earth observation and data. But also when we work with development people, they find satellites cool. I guess we all still find them cool, but it's not something they really bother too much, right? Again, it's about answering their question. And if satellites can play a minor role in that, it's great. But probably the major role will be boring things like household surveys or something else, right? That we can match with the cool satellites. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for a long time.
I don't think it doesn't give don't give the impression that you had a very boring life. So excellent. Thank you very much. We have a question from Valentin. How GDA looks to IRIS 2. I did not hear about it, so I would not know how to say IRIS.
Yeah, so I think that if I understand the question correctly, it refers to the EU program, I guess IRIS Square they call it.
Yes, thanks.
Which is the secure satellite constellation. We don't really connect much to it, to be honest. I think it's primarily about satellite communication. So this is a bit detached from what we do in the Earth observation domain. I mean, obviously there is a lot of joint needs in a sense, right? And this you can stretch that from Earth observation to telecommunication, to navigation, and potentially other domains in the broader space sector. And often, bringing all the different things together is where the magic lies. But considering the structure also of ESA, the funding structure, etc., we are sitting in the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs. So we got funding for Earth observation specific activities, and GTA is one program in that area. So we don't really integrate a lot of telecommunication. We've done a bit of tracking in the past, like navigation related things, where we combine Earth observation with these kind of activities. But with IRIS², we don't have real interaction. Understood. At the moment. Yeah.
And that's, I think, the background from Valentin, the satellite communication piece. So spot on. Actually, we're about to wrap up. I wanted to thank you very much for your time, precious insights, a pleasure talking to you. I like the approach, and I can encourage the audience to look up the gda.esa.int webpage. There's a lot of information if you want to know more. And I know there are a lot of events coming up too. So go look into it, have fun. And I want to remind you to become a space watcher by supporting SpaceWatch.Global. Christoph, for sure, you'll get your SpaceWatch.Global t-shirt. They're actually really cool. I have one too.
I look forward.
And with that, if that's okay with the production side too, I will wrap it up and say, take care and shine bright, everyone.
Thanks again, yes, for the invitation. And I also saw that Valentin actually answered some on the chat, so I may get back to him offline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christoph, and thank you, Sabine. For some reason, my webcam is not working, but I will still announce the events. Before we say goodbye, I wanted to remind everyone of the upcoming events. So on the 11th of April, we have at 8 p.m. Central European time, we have our Space Café 33 Minutes about the Lunar Policy Handbook with Héloïse Bertadier and Christopher Johnson that are going to talk about this new tool for policymakers that want to engage in activities on the moon. And on the 12th of April, and we're going to have at 4 p.m., we're going to launch a new regional chapter of Space Café. It's going to be Space Café Poland by Lukas Wilczynski. He's going to engage in a conversation with the director of Cloudflare. So looking forward to that. And between the 17th and the 20th of April, join Emma and Thorsten that will be at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs. So tune in for the best coverage you can ever find of this exciting conference. And on the 25th of April at 4 p.m., join our Space Café 33 Minutes with Clemens Kaiser. And on the 27th, we're launching another new regional chapter, Space Café India by Erika Valluri with Rajagopalan. So looking forward to that too. And on the 28th of April at 4 p.m., join our Space Café Scotland by Angela Matisse. And finally, on the 25th of May, we're going to hold another episode of our Space Café Law Breakfast with Stephen Freeland. Find and subscribe to all our events. And as always, they are going to be on Eventbrite. We would love to hear your feedback. So please check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And don't forget to sign up for our daily and our bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to support more events like this one, go and treat yourself with something special. Become a space watcher today or help us in the supporter program. Thank you all very much for your interest today. Thank you, Sabine, for hosting that inspiring talk. And thank you, Christoph, for taking part to it. And thanks again to the entire team behind the scenes for doing this great job week by week again. Thank you, our dear audience, for joining us. I hope to see you at next events. In the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget, become a space watcher. Goodbye, and thank you, everyone.